Elders, Lincoln High School, and Two Rivers High School as well. It's great to have you with us. This is the Hospitality and Tourism Career Exploration session. I'm Jamie Schramm. I'll be your moderator. So I serve as the Campus Executive Officer for the University of Wisconsin Green Bay. I oversee both our Sheboygan and Manitowoc campuses. We have two wonderful guests from the tourism and hospitality industry, two wonderful professionals who are going to share a bit with you. I'll let them introduce themselves when they do their presentations. We have Kathy Green from the Wisconsin Maritime Museum and Patty Lean from the Farm Discovery Center, both here in Manitowoc County. So students, so you kind of know what we're going to do. They're each going to give about a 10-minute presentation, a little bit on their background and what they do. And then towards the end, we'll have some times for questions and answers. So if you want to put questions in the chat box or ask them, certainly we can do that. And I will help facilitate that and we can kick things off. So Kathy, you want to maybe lead us off and start us off, and then we'll get into Patty. Looking forward to this. Students, great opportunity here, soaking all the wonderful knowledge and wisdom that they're going to share with you.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. I'm so glad to be invited to talk to you all today. As Jamie mentioned, my name is Kathy Green, and I'm the Executive Director at the Wisconsin Maritime Museum. So as you all are right here in that area, I'm guessing you're familiar with the Wisconsin Maritime Museum. We've been in right here on the Manitowoc River for over 50 years. Our centerpiece, of course, is the diesel submarine, USS Cobia, but we explore and talk about all of Wisconsin's maritime history, which is very rich indeed, the Great Lakes being one of our great water highways in the country. So a little bit about how I got here. My background is in marine archaeology and in history, as well as education. So I went to school to first study history, and then study how to apply that history in museums. I did that for an undergraduate degree at Indiana University. I'm originally from Southern Indiana, but grew up right on the Ohio River. And so always interested in boats and sailing and things like that. And so as I grew up and having an interest in history, that maritime connection really kind of pulled me in that direction. One of my first jobs out of college is that I worked for the Bermuda Maritime Museum on the island of Bermuda. And if you're not familiar where that is, you know, you kind of can picture in your head the Caribbean go north and east a little bit. So it's out in the Atlantic Ocean. And it was a great place with a lot of maritime history because it was that kind of key stopping point very early on in European exploration and then colonization and settlement of North America. It was a British colony, and they had this fantastic Royal Naval Dockyard, which was a museum. And so I worked there for a number of years. And while I was there, there was a group of students from East Carolina University who they were graduate students in marine archaeology, nautical archaeology. So archaeology of not only things underwater, but kind of encompassing that whole maritime landscape. So these folks would go out and scuba dive every day and map these shipwrecks. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I went back to graduate school to do that. Learned how to dive, learned how to work underwater. And for the last probably 25 years, I've been doing that in one way or another in all my different jobs, mostly in the Great Lakes, but all over the world. I still get out and dive, still map shipwrecks, but over the years, I find that for me, one of the most rewarding parts is sharing those stories that we're finding through archaeology and through history with other people. So for about 13 years, I worked for the National Marine Sanctuary Program over in Michigan, doing just that, kind of being the main outreach person there to convey those stories. And along the way, we opened a big museum and designed exhibits. And so talking about things is one thing, but also kind of sharing through these multiple media experiences like a museum is another way to do that. I also worked for the state of Wisconsin as a state underwater archaeologist here along the way. And our state has just some of the most phenomenal maritime history and some of the best examples of preserved shipwrecks anywhere because of the cold, fresh water out here in Lake Michigan. When this position became available here at the museum, it was a perfect combination of a place I knew and loved and some things I like to do. So that's how I kind of ended up here. As you might imagine, diving on shipwrecks isn't how I spend most of my day. In fact, this time of year, I don't spend any of my day doing that. However, kind of, again, this is all grounded in taking those stories and turning them into something that is going to enable our visitors, enable you to learn about our shared maritime past, care about it, share those stories yourself, and maybe learn a little more about our Great Lakes and the history and heritage there, and why it's important to preserve not just the cultural resources, not just the shipwrecks, but the communities along the lake and the lake itself. So, for the most part, kind of chief storyteller is the fun part of my job, but I also manage a staff of people, which I'm sure Patty can agree is often the hardest part of what we do. And certainly over the last couple of years, it's been really challenging to have to continuously adapt to what's going on in our community. But you know what? We've got a really great team of people here. And it's fun to be a part of a group who approaches the challenges we've had with some creativity and some flexibility. And so we've weathered the storm pretty darn well, and are excited about coming out of it back into another busy summer, which we actually had quite a busy summer this year as well. As I mentioned, this is about 25 years in this field. Just looking at a couple of the questions that would be good to address. While I do spend, unfortunately, an awful lot of time behind this desk and behind a computer, having the galleries about 30,000 square feet worth of exhibits and galleries, there's a lot to do out in the building. And a lot of people don't realize this, for a historic museum like this, only about 10% of your collection is on display. So that means we have thousands and thousands and thousands of items in storage, in our collection storage, and also in our archives. And so doing research there and working in those collections is another part of what we do. Of course, with the submarine, that's always a fun and challenging thing to manage a team of maintenance folks and volunteers, most of them submarine veterans themselves, to do the maintenance on Cobia, which is the most intact and fully restored World War II submarine anywhere in the world. So there's always a project to do. It's really great to talk to the folks who weren't there in World War II, but kind of they were using these Gato class diesel subs up into the Cold War. So these folks were out there during the Vietnam War and after that. So hearing their stories of what it was like to work on these boats is really another really rewarding part of the job. I absolutely love what I do. It's been a joy to come into to work every day, even though it's sometimes challenging. I end up doing a lot more financial management and fundraising than I have in any other position I've done before. But I find that, if you believe in what you do, I believe in the mission of the museum, it's a lot easier to talk to people about why they should support us. And so that's something that's certainly a part of what I do as well. Again, my background, just those basic humanities, history, English, you know, and kind of some of those soft sciences. So anthropology, archaeology, combining together to be a cultural resource manager. And I'll leave it with that. If you guys have any questions, or if Patty wants to do hers, and then we can do questions at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Thank you so much, Kathy. Yeah, Patty, if you want to talk a little bit about Farm Discovery Center, what you do in your background, and then we'll give our students a chance to ask some questions.
You bet. And I have never done this before, so I actually had prepared a PowerPoint. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Okay, it's not letting me, Jamie, there we go. Okay. Okay, are you seeing my PowerPoint?
I do not.
Not yet.
All right. Oh, there we go. I think there.
Yep.
Okay, very good. So I think people in Manitowoc County were probably familiar with Farm Wisconsin Discovery Center right here along I-43 south of Manitowoc. But we were built in 2018, and our goal is to teach people about where their food comes from, basically. So I'm just going to go a little bit through what we have here. So we have exhibits. We normally have a farm bus tour, but during the pandemic, we are just doing it as a video. And then our birthing barn is super popular. So I would hope a lot of people online have been here, but we have different exhibits, and the birthing barn is probably our most popular spot, especially when people get to see a calf being born. What a lot of people who have been here might not know is that we also have a conference center. We do have the Wisconsin Cafe, which we have back open again after more than a year of being closed. And then we also have the farmhouse store, which is right near the front entrance. So my point in highlighting those things is that I consider all of those things to be hospitality. So you can come at a career in hospitality and tourism from many different points of view. Here at Farm Wisconsin, we also host special events. So we just got done with a December filled with Santa Claus. We are coming up this next weekend. We're going to have our second annual alpaca llama extravaganza. The picture on the right is of a makeshift cranberry bog that we created when we were celebrating cranberries and doing some educational things about cranberries. So to get here, I had a very different path than Kathy did. I actually, ironically, I grew up on a dairy farm in Kiel. But this is the very first time in my career that I've worked in Manitowoc County. I started here almost 3 years ago at Farm Wisconsin, but while my title is executive director now, I came here via the marketing route. So when I was in high school, I think I had some similar interest to Kathy. I really loved history and I loved writing and communication. So I decided to go into marketing. And just to back up to my second bullet point there. So in showing some of those other pictures, I wanted to highlight that the other careers that are here at Farm Wisconsin, and we're a super small organization. The size of the building does not determine the size of the staff. So we just have a handful of people here on staff. We have an operations director, and then a program manager, a marketing coordinator, a cafe and catering manager, and accounting. So very small, even though it's a large building. So again, my pathway came here through marketing. I ended up going to Marquette University. So that is in downtown Milwaukee. And I really wanted to experience the big city, having grown up in Kiel, and fell in love with Milwaukee and stayed there for a marketing career until I met my husband. And he was from Central Illinois, and we moved down there, and we're down there for 12 years. However, so a lot of my background is marketing. I marketed in higher education and in publishing. But my very first job out of college was working actually at the Pettit National Ice Center in Milwaukee. And And that was back not long after it had opened. So it was where the U.S. speed skating team had trained. And I think that what I have found throughout the years between that role and my Farm Wisconsin role is that the hospitality industry really, I consider this part of hospitality and tourism, obviously, but hospitality in general, I think we cater to what our consumers need. And in hospitality, that often means weekends, and it's not the most glamorous of hours. So I kind of tried to break it down into, on the left, I made a list of some of the really fun things that I really love about hospitality and tourism. And on the right are some of the things that people might not realize at first, especially when you're in high school and you're looking at where you'd want to work. And it seems like super fun to work at, all of the most fun places you've been to when you've been on vacation. But some of the things that I want to highlight are on the right. So on the left, absolutely fun work. I am it's come full circle in my lifetime to be working in promoting agriculture, because that is how I grew up. That is not at all anything else in my career, had almost nothing to do with agriculture. I love also that every day that I come in here, there are a variety of tasks, especially like Kathy. I've had to get a lot more into the business and the fundraising than I would ever have thought previously in my career, but it is very rewarding because of what the end goal is. And so some of the other positions here at Farm Wisconsin come in, and every day they're doing something different. So that is another fun difference between working in hospitality and some of the other careers. Within hospitality, because we're tourism focused, you get to meet a lot of different people. And that is one of the most fun things here when we have guests in, and it's fun to ask them where they're from. And, sometimes it's people from Valdez or Two Rivers or Manitowoc, but many, many times it's people from Milwaukee and Green Bay and New Jersey and Chicago and Minneapolis. And so it's just fun to see why people chose to come to Farm Wisconsin. And then the other part of hospitality and tourism that I think is super attractive to a lot of people is that it's an opportunity to be creative, especially the slide that I showed where we host special events. That's really a big part of our organization, is bringing people back for multiple visits. And so we've put a lot of creativity behind planning, even particularly as we go into 2022, we'll be having a lot of different kinds of events. And it's fun to get creative and brainstorm with other team members here and outside of our organization. So those are I think, the highlights of working in hospitality and tourism. So on the right side, what you might not realize, though, is the extremely irregular hours. We just had a staff meeting here a couple hours ago where we were talking about our upcoming weekends and who is going to be covering different weekends, because some of us are trying to do some things with our kids or with our families on some of the weekends. But because Saturdays are busy days now, we need to make sure we have the coverage on Saturdays. So whereas previously in my career, I pretty much worked Monday through Friday, and maybe even a little less than that at times. Now, there are a lot of weeks where, some of us work 6 days a week, and we try to have the balance in there. But in hospitality, you just need to make sure that hours are covered. This year in particular, with different people have had COVID, we've had to cover for each other. And that made, when somebody had COVID, then the rest of us were working even longer hours just to make sure all the roles here were covered. Hospitality, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Catering to the customer can be a really fun thing. Catering to a customer can also be kind of frustrating when you don't see eye to eye and you try to appease the customer as much as possible. And then also, hospitality isn't known for high wages. There are roles within hospitality that certainly lead to increased income, but not all roles within hospitality are well-paying, especially compared to other industries, and particularly on the nonprofit front. So when I have been asked to speak to high school or college students, some of my key pieces of advice and observations are, number one, above all, and you can start it today, you can start volunteering. If you like Farm Wisconsin, we can find volunteer roles here for you. Even just scooping ice cream can be a volunteer role. So I really underscore getting involved as a volunteer anywhere that seems interesting to you, because you will learn so much about yourself. And nonprofits like ours really need volunteer help. So you'll be doing a good thing and you'll be getting the benefit of having more of an idea of what you want to do after high school. Absolutely pick something you're passionate about. It's almost a weakness for me that I am not able to do. I don't feel like I'm a very productive employee when I am not working for a cause that I believe in. And I've only thankfully had a couple of years of my whole career where I haven't been doing something that I'm really passionate about. But I quickly learned that about myself, that I need to be doing something that I'm passionate about or I won't be happy. That's not always the case. Sometimes if you really like what you're doing, you don't care where you're doing it. Unfortunately, I'm OCD or something where I need to be fully engaged, really liking what I'm doing and really loving where I'm doing it. From a hospitality perspective, if you are interested in hospitality, I don't want you to be thinking that you only need to be good at a certain thing. Written and verbal communication is super important within hospitality, and oftentimes, especially the written part, is overlooked. So you can never be too good of a writer, in my experience. And even whether you're going to start your career right after high school or if you're going to go to college, I very much I advise people starting at a nonprofit as your first thing. So going back to my experience at the Pettit Center, it's a nonprofit organization. And so it was my first job after Marquette, and I had a lot of classmates in my marketing courses who started either with ad agencies or in a marketing department of a larger organization. And they have built wonderful careers, but those first couple of years out of college, they were kind of pigeonholed into doing like one thing most days. And the flip side of that was me at a nonprofit. I was the marketing person at the Pettit Center. So I got some media relations. I did special event planning. I did business marketing. And I really learned a lot about myself by having those opportunities. And whereas, the classmates that I mentioned in a larger organization, some of those roles are going to go to much more experienced people. So it was a really nice opportunity. I didn't get paid very much. I'd be embarrassed to tell you what I got paid my first year at the Pettit Center. But I got really great experiences, which I consider to be invaluable. So, that's all I had for my presentation on I'm trying to get back here to my controls so I can take off my screen share. There we go. Where are we? I only have my tiny little view of our. There we go. Okay. So did you take it off, Jamie?
We're back.
Very good.
So thank you, Patty and Kathy. Some wonderful nuggets of wisdom there for our students. So students from any of our high schools, do you have questions you would like to ask? Something that you've heard, something that you were hoping to hear and maybe didn't? Here's your opportunity. You've got two professionals who have wonderful experience in hospitality and tourism. Opportunity to ask questions. I'm not uncomfortable with that uncomfortable pause in there. If we have a couple seconds.
Two Rivers has a question.
Please go ahead.
Other than like museums and Farm Wisconsin, what other opportunities do you see in the hospitality and tourism?
I'll jump in. When I think of hospitality and tourism, I also really think of hotels. So managing hotels is a big part of the the economy of Manitowoc County and much of Wisconsin. So maybe Karen can jump in a little bit more about that if she feels like it, but between having an attraction like the Maritime Museum and Farm Wisconsin, the hotels are a big part of our tourism economy.
Yeah, and I would just say the same kind of thing. So having you know, you have two people here who work at some of the main attractions in the area, but it's all, think about all the supporting industries that would go along with it. Everything from the SS Badger, the car ferry that brings people over. There's all kinds of positions that they need in the season, to the hotels, to the restaurants, to, you know, any of the kind of things that if you were a visitor, and this is really interesting. I always thought this was really interesting. Our numbers when I first got here, about 90% of our visitors are from outside Manitowoc County. So these are mostly folks coming in from out of the area. So, you know, I think that's only going to grow as more attractions come to the area. When Farm Wisconsin came in, there's kind of, at this point in Manitowoc County, you know, kind of a critical mass of things to do here that you are going to come off the highway. You are going to want to spend a day here and not just blow through on your way to Door County. So I think there are lots of opportunities. Again, many of them seasonal, which is great if you're in high school or college and looking for a summer job. We're always looking for summer folks to give tours on the boat or work at our front desk. And I know there's lots of other places in the area that need that seasonal help.
And a couple of other thoughts that come from me would be the theater. So you think of the Capitol Civic Center and all the different shows that they have. You think of the night market and Brennan Seehafer and all of the things that he does within the community. And that's all tourism, but that's locally focused too. So there's plenty of opportunities. And when Patty was talking about volunteering, it would be wonderful if you would be interested in volunteering at the Capitol Civic Center or at, you know, for say the Balloon Globe Committee down on the riverfront, because that's all in the hospitality area. So it's just, it's a wide open field.
All right, thank you.
A follow-up question then from Two Rivers is then, what do we consider? We understand there's more than just the museums, but you made references to low wages. After we volunteer, after we do a nonprofit, what are you looking at as far as entry-level pay?
Kathy?
Yeah, right. You know, I think depending on age and depending on the responsibilities, at a nonprofit, like a museum like this, $10 an hour is about where things would start. Again, as an hourly person, say, working with our overnight program, when Scout troops come here to spend the night and we need somebody to facilitate the education programs and stay overnight on the boat. Those start at like $10 an hour. And I think that's pretty, I think that's probably what you're going to find with a lot of seasonal hospitality work.
I see Patty shaking her head. So there was a question, maybe quickly we can answer, about a minute left, question that came through on chat from Manitowoc Lincoln High School. And I heard both of you mention communication, verbal and writing skills, but for students interested in hospitality, what classes should they be thinking about in high school?
Again, I think it's that basic communication. So learn how to write. And even if you're in, you know, if you think about, you know, if you want to work for Kohler in one of their hospitality properties, being able to put together a great resume and interview well, all of those things are going to happen by kind of those basic humanities courses and skills. Of course, there's all kinds of specialized courses that lead into specific hospitality careers, whether it's culinary arts or is it Lakeshore Technical College that has a hospitality program. You know, you can kind of head that way, but in high school, again, getting that nice, basic, strong education and being able to talk to people. I would have to say, you know, if things like debate club and things where you're getting comfortable talking to groups of people, that would be really, really helpful for hospitality work. Absolutely.
I'll just add to that business I didn't mention earlier, but a lot of, you know, we all like to make our decisions based on data. Data-based decision making is definitely a thing. So the business classes that you take are not a waste. So I would underscore to have a balance. Yes, communication has been really key for me. And it's one of my key frustrations in what I see in applications. But the business classes are also a good basis to have foundation.
Well, thank you, Patty and Kathy, for your input on that question. So we want to be respectful of everyone's time for students and for our professionals who are taking a break from their work day. So we're just a little bit past our time. So I want to thank all of our students for taking advantage of this opportunity and learning more about hospitality and tourism, especially here in Manitowoc County and in Wisconsin, what kind of careers and opportunities there are. And also thank you, Kathy and Patty, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. It's much appreciated. I think our young people appreciate it. I know I do as well. So with that, we will wrap up and bid everyone a happy Monday and enjoy the rest of your day. Stay warm.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.